And tonight, KIMT News 3's Gwen Siewert takes us inside the communities that are becoming the new faces of rural America.
In just one trip to Rochester, you feel as if you're almost a world away. There are now more than 30,000 East African refugees in Minnesota, many of those in the Med City, and that number continues to rise as things like the Somalian Civil War rage on with no end in sight. North Iowa has seen its share of Hispanic immigration booming in the past decade especially, but differences in culture, religion, and language are sometimes only skin deep.
Came here 10 years ago, people had problems, like Sharif said.
It's almost a bit shocking at first to see so many faces coming from warm tropical climates to the winter wonderland known as the Midwest. But the reasons for coming here are quite simple, says 10-year refugee Abdullah Sharif Fared.
The Somalis well connected to one another. So they are not only supporting themselves and their families, they have to always support it, the back home.
In 1993, Minnesota started hosting their first wave of Somali refugees sent here on assignment by the U.S. federal government. Minnesota was largely chosen because of very active service organizations in the state, like Lutheran Social Services, Catholic Charities, and World Relief Minnesota. It's the same reason the Gopher State hosts so many Hmong. Rochester Diversity Council Director Kay Hawker says Midwestern values actually span the globe.
Minnesota also has a reputation for being a good place to live. It's a safe place to live. It's a good place for families. Many people who are moving from other parts of the world have very strong family values and want to move to a place where they would feel comfortable.
Since the Somalian Civil War started 2 decades ago, nearly 1 million people have had to leave their home country as refugees. And now 50,000 of those people have made their way to Minnesota, looking for opportunities and the American dream.
It's good, actually, when it comes to, for example, in my area. I'm not complaining about it, especially at least for the weather.
Fared came to Rochester by way of Canada 10 years ago, fleeing the Somali Civil War, and is now a citizen. Even with hopes the Somali government will be stable one day, he says this is home, and he's not going back to Africa. Minnesota's Somali population is no stranger to attention-grabbing headlines. Just last year, a more than 3-state sex trafficking ring with leadership in Minnesota's Somali gangs was brought down for selling young girls as prostitutes. Then, 2 Rochester women, Amina Farah Ali and Hawa Muhammad Hassan, will stand trial in federal court this October for allegedly collecting money in the name of charity, but funneling it all to Al-Shabaab, a terror group in Somalia. Al-Shabaab has also been blamed for attracting nearly 20 young men from Minnesota back to Somalia to fight. But the Med City hopes they're doing things a little bit different.
About the recruiting, about the terrorist group, it has been exaggerated. That number is less than what has been taught. The group who are now called by Shabab in Somalia, this is the group that every Somali community hated.
Rochester Police Captain Brian Winters says things will continue to change with population growth, but law enforcement feel they don't see the drama-filled headlines in their local Somali community.
There is certainly a connection between our Somali community in Rochester and the Somali communities in the Twin Cities, but we have not seen a great deal, or we've not seen any reports of human trafficking amongst the Somali community here. Not to say that we're insulated from it, but it just hasn't occurred or been reported to law enforcement.
Todos somos hijos de Dios y en la cual todos venimos por un sueño.
In Clarion, the face of immigration looks a little bit different, but the dream is still the same.
I came because of the political situation of the country, in which I was forced to go on exile, and as a result I am one of the 500,000 Nicaraguans that fled the country.
Reverend Niels Hernandez feels that Hispanic immigrants moving to small towns in North Iowa and Minnesota haven't always had it that easy.
There are people here in the area, that they are not open to Hispanics, and even as a priest I face that some people really don't accept me because, to a certain extent, I am Hispanic, I have an accent.
Fared, Hernandez, and Hawker all agree that in any racially charged situation, education is key.
Anytime people who are different come together, there's a potential for challenge. There's a potential for perhaps not understanding each other.
Even though I'm a minority, when it comes to the race-wise. I can do whatever I want in Rochester. Yes, there are a lot of numbers in Twin Cities when it comes to Somalis. You see everywhere you go to Somalis, and sometimes you cannot say, oh, that's, sometimes I say myself, oh, we are majorities.
Rochester police say they are also actively working within all of their immigrant communities to make sure things do get reported to authorities and that they aren't afraid to speak up. Too often, they say, things try to get handled within the cultural group, and that's often when problems arise.